Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm asking perhaps what is the strangest question that I've ever asked in my entire life. Is Joffrey the New Yargle? Yeah, that's a really weird sentence, but if you're familiar with Game of Thrones and Commander, you might know what I'm talking about. Out of all the commanders in Commander's history, Yargle very well might have the most passionate fan base out there. Yargle was actually one of my very first deck techs, and I definitely did not expect the response that I got for that episode. Playing and winning a game of Commander with Yargle is an achievement in itself. And speaking of achievements, if you haven't seen my most recent episode on Replicating Ring, go ahead and check out that other Kaldheim achievement. A lot of cool and really interesting things are happening in Kaldheim, including Joffrey. Now, who exactly is this Joffrey in Kaldheim that I'm referring to? Well, really quick before we get to that card, a spoiler warning. If you're not looking for Kaldheim spoilers, go ahead and check out another one of my episodes like that Yargle deck tech. But if you're okay with spoilers and want to learn who Joffrey is in Kaldheim, let's jump into it. So, Egon, God of Death, is most definitely Joffrey. I mean, look at the picture. This angry-looking child that could throw a temper tantrum at absolutely any second has a scythe, and he wants to kill things. I mean, he even comes with his own throne of death. So yeah, Joffrey, Game of Thrones, it's all right here. Also, before we get to the card, I just want to read the flavor text really quick for another reference with Egon ages backward, his wisdom soured by youthful spite. So actually, Egon is kind of like Benjamin Button as well. So this Benjamin Button-esque Joffrey is the God of Death in the Kaldheim universe. Now, for all you Yargle fans out there, you're probably wondering, how does Yargle come into play? I'm getting there, I promise, and I know this episode is ridiculous. Anyways, Joffrey is a 6/6 god with Death Touch that costs 2 and a black. He has at the beginning of your upkeep, exile 2 cards from your graveyard if you can't sacrifice Joffrey and draw a card. This is the most Yargle commander that I have seen since Yargle. Yes, it comes with a Throne of Death, but okay, we'll go through it really quick, but we're not going to play that side. A legendary artifact for a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card, pay 2 and a black, tap and exile a creature card from your graveyard, draw a card. Ignore that. Joffrey is what matters. So let's just see how Joffrey stacks up when we compare it to Yargle. Because although there are differences, there are actually quite a few similarities between the two. Now, for those of you that don't remember, Yargle is a 9/3 frog spirit for 4 and a black. And that's it. The rest is just flavor text because it's a vanilla creature. And that's what makes Yargle so Yargle. But although Joffrey isn't a vanilla creature, there are a lot of comparisons we can make. Now, in Standard and other formats, Joffrey might be really effective, I'm not sure. But in Commander, a 6/6 Death Touch for 3 isn't game-breaking, especially one that's actively trying to get itself off your board. Because again, at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to exile 2 cards from your graveyard, and if you can't, you sacrifice it. Now, yes, it draws a card to replace itself, but still, that's a huge downside. Now, Yargle basically tries to take itself out in another way in that it only has 3 toughness. But still, you have to keep filling your graveyard to actually keep Joffrey just in play. So in some ways, it's better than a vanilla creature, but in other ways, it's worse. I mean, if it was a 6/6 no Death Touch for 3, would it be better than it currently is? I don't know. Death Touch can be very beneficial for a Voltron commander, and we'll get to why here in a bit. But still, that Death Touch comes at a price, and that price is getting a lot of cards in your graveyard. And yes, the throne side can help with that, but then you've got to work to find ways to get it back to your hand and so on and so forth, and it's really not worth doing. So let's talk about other ways to fuel this God of Death. Now, the first way is pretty obvious, but just by casting instants and sorceries, you're gonna fill up your graveyard. And if you've got a way to get another card in your graveyard, Dark Ritual is a fantastic turn 1 play. Because all you need is this, and Joffrey's out on turn 1. And that's a huge leg up on Yargle. Again, you still need to get something else in your graveyard though, or bye-bye Joffrey. Regardless, you're of course going to want repetitive ways to mill yourself as well in this kind of a deck. So a card like Perpetual Timepiece that can tap and mill you 2 is fantastic. Because again, Joffrey's price is 2 cards. You can also utilize something like Grind Clock to help you out even more in the long run. You can tap to put a charge counter on it, and then you can tap it and target player puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard, where X is the number of charge counters on Grind Clock. So if you can build up more and more counters, this becomes more and more effective. And Joffrey can even help himself by utilizing an equipment like Shard of Broken Glass. It gives Joffrey +1/+0, and whenever Joffrey attacks you, mill yourself too. So Joffrey kind of helps pay his own fee. And of course, like many other Voltron decks, we're going to be utilizing a lot of other equipment. And the first kind of equipment that I want to touch on is going to be equipment that deals with a certain type of mechanic, or should I say mechanics. Because Joffrey has Death Touch, First Strike is fantastic with him. Runechanter's Pike is an equipment that costs 2. An equipped creature has First Strike and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. So this card can be absolutely incredible in this deck. First off, once you get going and you can mill yourself a good amount, you can fill your graveyard with instants and sorceries. Joffrey lets you pick and choose the 2 cards that you want to get rid of, so you can keep instants and sorceries in there. And on top of that, First Strike and Death Touch are a match made in heaven. Or wherever Joffrey lives. I'm not sure what the Underworld's called in Kaldheim, actually. Because with First Strike and Death Touch, Joffrey is basically unstoppable in combat. Joffrey can kill anything with 1 point of damage, and Joffrey hits first. Okay, I guess unless the other creature is indestructible, or, First Strike, or you know what I mean. Regardless, just know that First Strike equipment can be fantastic with this commander. And obviously, Double Strike can be doubly as effective. So Fire Shrieker, which gives Joffrey Double Strike, is definitely an include. You not only hit first so that Death Touch comes into play, but you also hit twice as hard. Next up, let's talk about another keyword that Death Touch takes to another level. And that would be Trample, which comes on an equipment like O Naginata. It's an equipment that just costs 1, but it can only be attached to a creature with power 3 or greater, which Joffrey has. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has Trample. So this makes Joffrey into a 9/6 with Death Touch and Trample. Now, Death Touch and Trample pair really well because you just need to assign 1 point of damage when you've got a creature with Death Touch to kill something. And then thanks to Trample, the rest of the damage goes through. So for this example, if Joffrey is a 9/6, if the defending player is only blocking with 1 creature, no matter what the toughness of that creature is, they're taking 8 damage. Again, this is different if the creature is indestructible and so on and so forth. Regardless, just know that First Strike is great with Death Touch and Trample is great with Death Touch. So a card like Sword of Vengeance that gives Joffrey +2/+0, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste is fantastic. So yeah, good luck blocking Joffrey and getting through Joffrey. And speaking of getting through, a card like Vorak Battlehorns can help out a lot as well. It says equipped creature has Trample and can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So again, thanks to Death Touch, this basically guarantees that we're getting a ton of damage through. And I probably should have mentioned this before, but again, that's commander damage, so it only takes 21 to take your opponents out. Now, speaking of getting through, of course, there are some even more effective ways at doing that. If you can make your commander unblockable, sometimes you don't need to trample over your opponent's creatures, even though you might want to. And a card like Key to the City can be fantastic in this deck. It has tap, discard a card, up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn, and whenever Key to the City becomes untapped, you can pay 2. If you do, draw a card. So this makes Joffrey unblockable, and it can help us loot. And getting cards in our graveyard for Joffrey is always a good thing. And even a simple equipment like Prowler's Helm can be very effective as well. It says equipped creature can't be blocked except by walls. And unless your friend's got an Arcades the Strategist deck, this is just basically unblockability. And of course, one last thing that I want to mention is that outside of commander damage, there's another fun way to take out your opponents. And that's by poisoning your opponents with Infect. And they might not think that's fun, but you definitely do because you're Joffrey. Or wait, at this point, does Joffrey think poisoning is fun? I don't know. Anyways, moving on, of course there's an equipment that can help you live your best Infect life with Grafted Exoskeleton. It gives Joffrey +2/+2 in Infect, but if it ever becomes unattached from Joffrey, you've got to sacrifice him. That won't happen though, right Joffrey? Anyways, if you've got another way to increase Joffrey's power by 2 more, Joffrey is now a one-shot kill. Because again, it only takes 10 poison counters to take out your opponents. So also in this deck, you're probably going to want Tainted Strike, which is basically Surprise Infect. And who doesn't love surprises, especially when they come from Joffrey? Now as the episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my gut feeling about this commander. Joffrey is very much a Yargle-esque commander. A lot of power for the mana, but also a lot of downside involved as well. But that's what makes these commanders fun. They're not overpowered in Commander by any means. In fact, they're pretty underpowered. But if you put the effort in, I know that you can win with Joffrey just like you won with Yargle. You can show your friends who the real King of the Andals is or whatnot. So get out there and build a deck and beat your friends with this Benjamin Button-esque Joffrey. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are. And as always, thanks again and have a good one.